let's continue then to talk about this very issue, and we bring in Thabang Bogopa, who is a crime analyst, just to discuss a little bit more about this. Thabang, very good afternoon to you. So, I mean, we've just heard now, of course, the minister talking about efforts that the police are making, you know, in terms of curbing this phenomena now that is on the rise in South Africa, which speaks to extortion. I mean, what do you make of what we're currently seeing, and of course the rise in extortion cases, which has in the main been very prominent in KwaZulu-Natal firstly, but has since been reported across the country, especially severe recently in the Eastern Cape, the Western Cape?
Thank you so much, and good afternoon to the viewers. You know, in South Africa, we have a challenge in terms of enforcement of statutory crimes. And I'm saying this because if you look at how sophisticated the extortion crime and its elements are, it is, number one, not easily policeable at the local police station level. I mean that in its own nature, it is the mandate of the DPCI or the Hawks. However, due to the smaller amounts that are often involved in this crime, it is often not possible for all the cases to be handled at the DPCI. And now let's look at why do we have the problem, particularly your Eastern Cape, your Durban or KZN as well as Western Cape, and it's now also dominant in Gauteng, although it's not much. KwaZulu-Natal and Eastern Cape are predominantly rural. And if you look at where the offices of the DPCI or the Hawks are based, it's mostly at the cities. And if you look at the strength of the DPCI in those provinces, it's actually impossible for that small quantity of people to be policing the whole province for those crimes. And also, number two, organized crime has been accepted in our communities, especially if it does not involve or affect high-profile people. And that is the problem, that in terms of policing, it is only given attention when it affects either a celebrity or a very wealthy business person. But if it's a normal person who's selling on the street, if it's a normal contractor with less than 100,000 contract, they don't get the necessary attention. But lastly, South Africa requires that for a case to be enrolled in court, there must be prima facie evidence. And that's why the greatest challenge is in terms of the police having a case docket that has sufficient evidence to be enrolled in court in order to prosecute those perpetrators. Yeah,
I mean, Thabang, you've raised pertinent points. I want to talk about, you know, the possibilities of how then law enforcement authorities can have a handle on this across the country. As you, of course, have rightfully pointed out, that we're also seeing a lot of these cases in your rural areas. I mean, even though the police have taken a tough stance on extortionists, the crime seems to be on the rise. I mean, just last night we saw, of course, that gun battle between suspects that were, 6 were shot, in fact, in KZN. But the increase in some parts of the country has now prompted concerned citizens to demand that government intervene in the form of the SANDF. I mean, should the army get involved in this case, in your view?
Thank you so much. The unfortunate part is that even if the defense force was to be involved, but the police are not capacitated, we will yield no good results. Remember, the defense can only go there for physically being there. But then in terms of prosecuting these people, which is, remember, we're in a democratic country, you cannot just go there and shoot at random. It means that if those perpetrators cooperate with the enforcement when they are there, but in the absence of enforcement, then they go back to do the extortion, defense won't help. So what I'm saying is that at a strategic level, the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation, which is the Hawks, must be capacitated. We have a lot of qualified unemployed graduates who could be there investigating these crimes, because the organized crime unit within the DPCI, it's already focused on your CIT bombings, your murders, aggravated robberies. But then all forms of extortion should be included in the mandate of the DPCI. Even if it's an extortion of 100 rand, it must be investigated as a serious case, because if 5 different gangs come and demand 100 rand from that old lady who's selling at the street, that is so much. If 5 gangs come to a contractor and each demands 10,000, that is a lot. let me just mention the current modus operandi whereby they are targeting network providers to say, if you don't pay protection fee, you cannot render a network service in the area. So you find that Vodacom, Cell C, MTN, Telkom, and others are already now paying these syndicates just to offer network to the rural communities. So DPCI must be well equipped, and perhaps an interesting point for the head, the Dr. General Levia, is that let us look honestly at the skill subset within the DPCI. Yes, we have people who are trained in terms of combating crime, but in terms of investigation, which is now an intellectual role within the DPCI, how capacitated are they? And let them be honest, and if they need to hire more or capacitate those units more, let them capacitate those units more with people who have been trained at a tertiary level to investigate sophisticated crimes.
Especially when you consider the acceleration in terms of this particular crime, and also the silence and the fear that has been, instilled in these communities for them not reporting this crime. But Thabang, let me thank you for your time this afternoon. Of course, Thabang Bogopa there for us, an independent crime analyst, as we continue then to speak and spread light about this current crime that's on the rise in the country, and that is the crime of extortion.